May it please the court, I rise in defense of this guy, the humble Lodge cast iron skillet. These poor guys have been taking an absolute pounding online recently, and I think it's time for someone to step in and set the record straight. Now what's going on is that people are complaining about the texture, about the surface of these lodges. They say that they are rough and they are bumpy and they are not smooth like the old school lodges used to be. And perhaps I've triggered the algorithm, but every time I sign on these days, I am inundated with videos where people complain about the lodges, then they put on masks and respirators and go out to their garages and workshops and take angle grinders and sanders and polish these guys smooth and re-season them. And it kind of left me wondering over time, is there something wrong with a Lodge cast iron skillet? Or perhaps, are they fantastic values that cook really, really well? Who knows? But in this video, we are going to find out. We are going to review this new Lodge 11-inch cast iron. I got this one at Costco. I paid less than $20 for it. And indeed, it does have that rough and bumpy texture to the surface. There it is. That's what everyone is worried about. Now, is our food going to stick? Is that texture going to affect cooking performance? Are you scared? Quite frankly, I am petrified. Okay, now I think this 11-inch is a Costco exclusive because I can't find them for sale anywhere else. So we're going to take a look at the 10 and the 12 as well. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the 11 slides in right between those two. It's a little bit bigger than the 10. The 10 weighs 5 pounds, 6 ounces. The 11 is about a pound more at 6 pounds 11, and the 12 is another pound heavier at 7 pounds 11. They come pre-seasoned, so all you got to do is give the pan a quick wash and you're up and cooking. I like that. I tend to think of it as a starter seasoning that's going to develop and improve over time. So 3 identical frying pans, just different sizes, and obviously you just pick the one based on the amount of food you're going to cook. Speaking of cooking, let's put this Lodge to the test. We are going to start with the cast iron cornbread test. Absolutely critical for a cast iron pan. If it's going to be a great pan, it's got to crank out delicious cornbread. So what I'm doing here is preheating this Lodge. You're going to preheat it to 450 degrees for 25 minutes. In the meantime, I'm making up some cornbread batter using my mom's Southern cornbread recipe, which I will link to below. After 25 minutes, I remove the Lodge from the oven. It's screaming hot. I'm going to add 4 to 5 tablespoons of Crisco, make sure it's coated really well. Back in the oven to make sure that fat is screaming hot as well, 2 minutes. After which I remove the Lodge. I pour that hot fat into my cornbread batter. Stir, stir, stir. Then add the batter back to the pan. And you should hear something like this. And that is the sound of a thick, heavy cast iron pan with a lot of thermal mass, creating what we hope is going to be a crunchy, delicious brown cornbread crust. Into the oven it goes, 23 minutes or so, and let's see how we did. And boom, first try. Turned out a delicious non-stick cornbread with a fantastic crust, even though we were using a rough and bumpy cast iron pan. What about eggs? People have lots of trouble with stuck eggs. How about the fried egg test? I'm going to preheat my Lodge to about 280 degrees. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of oil. I'm going to add a nice pat of butter. That butter is going to sizzle and crackle and bubble. Once that bubbling abates, I'm going to gently add 2 room temperature eggs. Let those guys set up. Give the pan a goose and boom! Non-stick eggs. What about those bumps? They didn't grab our eggs. What about bacon? Lots of people have trouble with bacon sticking, so let's show you how to cook bacon in a cast iron frying pan. What I'm going to do is start with a room temperature pan. I am not preheating this lodge. Laying out my thick cut bacon. Then I put the pan on the burner, turn it on, and I let the pan warm up slowly. Pay attention to your bacon and you will notice before it starts to sizzle, it will start to render out a little bit of fat. Once it does that, go ahead and give that bacon a couple of early turns. Then once it starts sizzling, you can go ahead and bring the heat up a little bit and you've got non-stick bacon. What happened to the bumps? What about the rough surface? How about some tallow taters? Going to test the lodge here on my Breville Control Freak induction burner. A little bit worried going into this one because the lodge is a good 2 inches wider than the coil burner, whatever technology induction uses. It's about 7 inches wide on that Breville, and this pan is at least 9 inches wide on the bottom. So is it going to cook evenly? Took care to heat it slowly. I did not use the rapid heat function. I used the slow setting. Let my pan heat up. Got my tallow in there, made sure to stir it around. I think that helped to distribute the heat. Added some test potatoes. Very important to add test potatoes. If the test potatoes are sizzling and not sticking, then I go ahead and add the rest of my potatoes. And I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised here, getting nice, even cooking edge to edge on this induction, even though the pan is wider than the coil. Nice browning here and no sticking. What happened to those bumps? More potatoes with a little more technique here, making some hash browns. And here on a gas cooktop, I grated my potatoes, I soaked them, I wrung them out really well, made them as dry as possible. I heated the lodge, again used some test potatoes, added my hash browns, let them set up for a little bit before I mashed them down. Give a pan of goose and boom. Non-stick hash browns in a bumpy, rough lodge. Now I know we're having a little fun and joking around a little bit in this video, but I do ask people to pay attention to technique because you can take the same food in the same frying pan, and if you use poor technique, the food can just be fused to the pan. You would need a hammer and chisel to get some of the hash browns out of this guy. But if you do things correctly, even a rough and bumpy lodge is incredibly non-stick. Fried okra, here using the lodge on a glass electric flat top stove. I took a supermarket package of frozen cut okra, breaded that up using my mom's southern fried okra recipe, and here I'm going to fry this in extra virgin olive oil, which you can actually do depending on what temperature you're going to fry. So I'm using low 300s here. Note on capacity here, this 11-inch holds one entire bag of supermarket okra. This would be too much for the 10-inch. Might be a little bit crowded here, might work better in the 12, but it will hold the entire package in one batch. That browned up, no sticking. Again, what about those bumps? The worst bumps ever. Here I made a little shepherd's pie. Technically not shepherd's pie because I'm using only beef, so cottage pie. Why don't they call it rancher's pie? Browning 2 pounds of ground beef in this 11-inch model. I probably overcrowded here. I should have done this in 2 batches. It all worked out okay. It just steamed for a little while before it browned. Now, if you are enjoying this video, you might also like Uncle Scott's Great Home Cooks Club, the premium membership tier here at Uncle Scott's Kitchen. If you join up, you'll get loads of bonus exclusive content, deep dives, and discussions on recipes, and will be thanked in future videos. And as a matter of fact, I will be thanking all current members at the end of this video. Check out Uncle Scott's Great Home Cooks Club today. So I added some onion, some flour, beef stock, tomato paste, Worcestershire, and then some peas and carrots, and made a nice filling. For the topping, I prepared some mashed potatoes. I boiled some russets. I mashed those up with hot milk and butter. And now I'm going to add these to the top of the mixture in the lodge. Again, I overcrowded a bit here and I was a little bit worried about this bubbling over. So I put it on a rimmed baking sheet, took it to the oven, and it turns out it did bubble over just a little bit. But this cottage pie turned out fantastic. We absolutely tore through the entire thing for Sunday dinner. And I think the lodge did a great job going from stovetop to oven, and those bumps did not affect us one bit. Now looking at that shepherd's pie mess, this is a good time to touch on cleanup here. What I do is use some hot water. I use a lodge brush. I use a little bit of chainmail, touch of dish soap if necessary. It's okay to use a touch of dish soap in your cast iron, and everything cleans up pretty easily. So no big deal on the cleanup. And then as far as re-seasoning cast iron, I use what I call the granny method. And that's because my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, who is a grandmother, they all use this method. You just warm the pan up a little bit, rub it with a little bit of Crisco, wipe it until it looks dry, and then stick it in a 450-degree oven for an hour, hour and a half or so. Let the pan cool down, and that is all there is to it. Very easy seasoning method, and it's worked well for decades. And for the grand finale, how about a high-temp red meat sear? Heating my pan up on a gas stove to a little over 450 degrees. My steak I had taken out of the fridge an hour or so before I was ready to cook. Right before it goes in, I brushed it lightly with peanut oil, salted it. I did not pepper it because I'm going high heat sear here and I don't want the pepper to scorch. In it goes, and a little fun fact here with beef prices these days, this steak actually costs more than the frying pan. And again, that lodge has lots of thermal mass. It is really doing a great job at maintaining a sear. And I gotta say, that's a pretty good looking steak this lodge is cranking out. Is anybody still worried about those bumps? And can you go wrong with a steak, baked potato, broccoli and cauliflower gratin, and a nice glass of red wine? No, you cannot. That makes for a nice Saturday night meal. So at the top of the video, we posed the question, is there anything wrong with a Lodge cast iron skillet, even though they're a little bumpy and rough? No, there is not. These things work fantastically, and you've seen me use this rough and bumpy Lodge to produce a ton of delicious food here in this video. It has done everything I have asked it to do. We have cooked eggs at lower temperatures. We've gone hotter temperatures in the oven. We've fried at medium temperatures. High temp sears. It's worked on gas, electric, and induction. At less than $20, I think the Lodge cast iron skillet is perhaps the best value in cookware. It works fantastically. So don't let those bumps and those roughy surfaces worry you if you were thinking about a Lodge cast iron skillet. I give all three of these guys resounding thumbs up, and in particular, the 11-inch. If you can find that guy at less than $20, I think one of the best values in cookware today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Kitchen.